So let's move on to Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I'm all out of movies. Let's move on to two TV shows. We got Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and then we're gonna do the Vince Staples show after this. Uh Mr. and Mrs. Smith, 89% on the tomato meter, 67% on the audience score. So the audience lacking a little bit. Where do I fall in line? I tend to move. Actually, I tend to go with the tomato meter. And I know you guys probably be like, "Man, this guy's an easy grader." I'm gonna keep it real. This television series was so good. I've never seen Atlanta. It makes me want to go watch Atlanta because Donald Glover is just amazing. He's amazing. And I like, you know why I say that? Salute to the shorty, man. She who played Jane Maya Erskine. She was good, but nothing about her in this television series was really that impressive, other than her being, you know, the B to, you know, Donald Glover's A. For that expensive, like, and I'm not trying to be like rude. Salute, y'all know me, woman empowerment all day. You know what I mean? Shout out to my ladies that listen. But yeah, she wasn't that good. For one, I'm telling you, the charisma, from what I've been told a lot of times, is that yes, you have a script, but you're allowed to ad lib. And for some reason, man, like she wasn't that good. Donald Glover, on the other hand, he was so good in this show. He was amazing. Like, he just had perfect comedic timing in a lot of his scenes. Now, one thing I will say about this, and this is my huge critique on the show. Actually, I got a couple critiques, but this is one. Yo, too much. Some of the scenes are just long for no reason. Like, it's certain scenes when John and Jane, right, when they in the bed and they're talking for like 6 minutes when the scene should be about 3, and they have about at least 6 scenes of that in this series. I'm not even bullshit. It could be more. I'm just being nice, and I really hate that. You know, I don't really like too much just talking for just talking's sake. You know, it was too much of that. And another one of my big pet peeves in this show is the action was not good. It really, you know, the action in Reacher, because this is a Prime Video thing. The action in Reacher was cool. It was good, I'll say. But for some reason, the action in Mr. and Mrs. Smith was kind of bad. And it was a scene, I'm going to find it. Hopefully I find it and I can insert it here. It was a scene, bro, where, you know, Jane and John had their big shootout. And it was a scene like he tried to punch her, and he just looked so like unathletic. It didn't look real at all. And I'm like, bro, maybe you should have had the stunt double do that scene if you couldn't do it realistically. You know, so that was one thing, you know, Donald Glover need to work on, is his physical acting, as far as just certain hot, heavy action scenes. You know, because some of it he just wasn't good in when it comes to the action. But a lot of good cutaways, you know. Like, it was the scene in particular when they were going on a double date action spree, and the people actually left them and let them go and do it by themselves, and then they just cut to it, and they're like in the jungle fucking having to survive and killing these people, and then they get back on a plane, face all bloody, everything looking crazy, and they just like distraught. I love that scene. It's probably my favorite scene in the entire series. um so that was that. One thing I really do enjoy though is they didn't do Mr. and Mrs. Smith the original word for word, bar for bar. You know, the original Mr. and Mrs. Smith was two agents working for two separate agencies, and they somehow end up being married, and then both agencies try to get each other to kill each other, right? And when they find out what's going on, they was BSing, and they said, F it, because you really my wife, you're really my husband, and I really love you. I know I got married as a cover up, but still, I love you because I didn't get married thinking this was some BS, right? So in this series, it's an arranged marriage, and they know what's up. And one thing I kind of didn't like was they kind of fell in love a little too quickly. So, like I said, it was an arranged marriage, and the lady who's playing Jane, she was like, I'm not really trying to get physical with you. This is just a job to me. Blah 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 blah. Meanwhile, John, he was like, let's smash type shit. Let's be together. We were married, and she wasn't having it. But by I think maybe episode 2, she was like, yeah, let's have sex. Like, let's do it. And I get it. It could be the adrenaline of almost dying. That's could always be a thing. I don't know. But I'm guessing that's what it was. And she was on his ass. So but I always felt like she was a little snakish, and she turned out to be a little snakish. So another example of what I was saying, when you're talking about some of the scenes that was just going on too long. So I do enjoy, or I did enjoy, the therapy sessions. The therapy sessions are also some of my favorite scenes. It's just some of them was going on too long. Some of it was going on too long. But another one of my favorite scenes, and again, my man, he just still the show, is when they were like really deep into therapy and they was really going at it. And he just started trying to play the therapist piano, and she was like, that's not for playing. And he was like, oh, piano, that's not for playing. Like, he cooked her ass. That was just one of the ones that I just like. He had a bunch of really good scenes. And I'm sorry, Marvel, what are you doing? He needs to be the Prowler in a live action ASAP. We need that. We need live action Miles Morales, and he has to be the Prowler. He's too old to be Spider-Man, but he'll never be too old to be Miles Morales, at least not Miles Morales, but the Prowler, at least in the next 20 years. We need him as the Prowler. I want to see more of my man's Donald Glover. I'm not into Star Wars. I might check his Star Wars shit out, because honestly, this series really showed me a lot. I'm really impressed from what I've seen from Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So, and like I said, I do like the twist that they put on it. Now, I do, spoiler alert, y'all know spoilers always, but I do hate that they died at the end. And I'm going to tell you why I hated it, because I could have had another season of this, but I get it. This type of show, you can only regurgitate things, because what are you going to do? So season 2, or are they going to be this is the only way that they could do a season 2 is if they go polyamorous, and now they got a wife, right? or they got a husband, and it's multiple of them, and they all living in that's the only way they could do it, because otherwise it'd just be a repeat of season one, bickering, fighting, because there was a lot of bickering between Jane and John every episode, and it was kind of like, if you're in a relationship, it's kind of hot. Y'all know how it is, man. Relationships, little arguing, shit get tense, and then you make up before bedtime, you do a little some smooches, and then you smash, and then everything cool, or because you never want to go to bed mad. If you go to bed mad, even if you wake up and shit gonna be cool the next day, that person not gonna get over it. If you have an argument, you must have sex before you go to sleep. That's the laws. That's the bylaws. I don't write the rules. I just enforce them. So yeah, I think that's all you will be able to do is just regurgitate season one, arguing, fighting, bickering back and forth. It was some things. So she was a little more ruthless than him as far as murdering people. So she was able to do certain things that he wasn't comfortable with. And I think, that was another good dynamic with them having a power struggle in their relationship, and work being the dominant factor in their struggles. Every time they were in the therapist's office, it was always about work, and because they worked together. And their working together is different if we both work in the kitchen, or all of that stuff is high leverage. You can't tell me you never gotten into it with a coworker at work, because it's high tension to get your job done. I don't care what people say. You're not curing cancer or whatever. Everyone wants to get their job done, and to feel like you accomplished something that day. So imagine that times 10, because now it's life or death, so the tension is very high, and that was a common source for them when it comes to their relationship, a common struggle, or a common source for their struggle in the relationship, because otherwise they were fine. One thing I didn't like is she ended up turning on him at the end, which she can, like, I get it. She was saying she was missing on purpose. He was saying he was missing on purpose. But if you guys would have stuck together, you would have been able to kill those other two couple who came to kill you, because they wanted her to move up without him, because they felt like he wasn't ruthless enough. So you kill him and we get you another husband to do undercover work, and she wasn't having it. So I mean, it was very good. If I had to rate it out of 10, I'd give it a solid 7. A solid 7. It was good. I'm not sure if I would want to watch it again, but it was a good it was a good TV series. I think I watched it in 2 days, and that's a good barometer for me with word podcasts and all this stuff. It was a very good episode, good series, I mean. So you should check it out. And again, it's definitely something to watch with your lover. Only thing is, if you're married, you might get triggered when it comes to therapy sessions. Other than that, it's a good watch for couples. Do I prefer the movie or the TV series? I mean, the movie is just classic. It's Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt. And not only is it Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt, they actually, I don't know if Angelina was with someone, but Brad Pitt, I think, was married at the time, and like left her for Angelina Jolie. Like, that's how much chemistry they had on set. And they ended up having kids, adopting kids, and I think they're separated now, but it was a good love story. So you gotta always go with the movie, the original. I love Mr. and Mrs. Smith, but this one isn't too far off. And they tell a totally separate story. So it's not like watching The Last of Us or, something like that. It's a totally different story. And to me, uh, it's just a chapter in the Mr. and Mrs. Smith saga. To me, you can tell separate Mr. and Mrs. Smith stories. Now, can we get a black Mr. and Mrs. Smith couple? And let's see how that turns out. You know what I mean? Like, we can do a bunch of different Mr. and Mrs. Smiths. That's why I was a little upset that, they died at the end, because is no reason they didn't die, right? 3 shots went off, I'm assuming. I think it was 3 shots. His wife Jane only had 1 bullet because um John was shot in the stomach or whatever. So he was already probably about to die anyways. And she had 1 bullet and 3 bullets went off. So maybe she did shoot, she missed. And the other Mrs. Smith put one in between her eyes and put another one in between his eyes. Boom, cancel Christmas. It's over, said and done. So it was a really good series, though, and I highly recommend you to go see it. Okay.